Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan. Joined virtually next to me is Pete. Good morning, Pete. How are you?
I am great, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. And the reason I'm great is we're going to talk about two shows that you and I have binged our way through. One is an old favorite. One is a new friend. And that means I'm talking about Dune Prophecy, which is on Max. And I'm talking about Yellowstone Season 5, which is on Paramount Plus. Where would you like to begin? Old friend or new friend?
Let's start with the old friend. Let's talk about Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. So have you watched all of Season 5?
Well, that's been released so far.
How many more episodes are coming out this year?
I'm not 100% sure because this is the second part of the finale season.
Yeah.
I imagine that we've got, I think 3 or 4 episodes are out. I imagine we've got another 3 or 4 episodes max.
Okay. So we're going to have some spoilers. Be prepared. Generally, what did you think about how this season is going?
I mean, can we even call the show a Western anymore?
No, we cannot. It
Right?
is turned into an assassin series, actually.
Right? I feel like this is almost like Day of the Jackal.
Yeah.
They're investigating murders. They're instigating cover-ups.
If they combine Succession with Day of the Jackal, you would have Yellowstone.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten like really crazy. Like we went from having problems about the ranch
Yeah.
to now multi-state federal investigation about the murder of the governor, in this case, our beloved Kevin Costner. I just feel like it's so weird.
It also
gotten a
turned
little
into
off the
some type of
rails.
like tax course.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
let's talk about the good and the bad. I'm happy that this is all kind of moving towards a conclusion.
Yeah.
I don't really like the conclusion, to be honest. If you would have asked me what the conclusion was, kind of like in season 1, I would have said the conclusion's going to be this very sad, teary-eyed, kind of Kevin Costner surviving a stroke, dragging himself out to a rock overlooking this vista with a flask of whiskey and an old revolver. And then we pan away, we look at a deer or a wolf, which is spooked by a gunshot in the background, right? And we know it's Kevin Costner kind of taking his life. That's kind of how I thought the whole thing would end. I didn't think it would end in the whole family turning on each other and creating a mess, like kind of a sad mess, to be honest.
It's become so disjointed. I don't know what's going on anymore, in the sense that I do know what's going on, but like Casey's family, what's the story point there? Beth and Rip, what's the story there? Jamie, what's the story there? I mean, it's gotten a bit.
Can I tell you that I think Kelly Riley is fantastic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not since Skylar White, I think, have I disliked a character so much that her original kind of I'm a mouthy woman has turned into, she is just not just rude and mean, which we've known for like several seasons. She's just kind of like flat out awful. And now it's almost as though the writers have kind of like justified her original awfulness after, I think, seasons of being entirely unfair to Jamie. And Jamie's always been a little bit weak and a little bit of a wuss.
Yeah.
But I never really thought that. I mean, let's go back to what is the original sin that Jamie committed in the family? she got pregnant from Rip and she went to Jamie for help, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And Jamie, okay, maybe not a good decision maker. When your pregnant sister comes to you and says, I can't tell mom and dad, help me, what are his options? Deliver the baby? That's not what she's asking. She was asking for the abortion, right? They had to go to like a back alley place and the dude botched her abortion. And as a result, she could not have kids, right?
Right.
That's Jamie's really only sin against the family for the first several years, right?
Right.
Let's take all the politics out of abortion out of this. I don't really feel like that's 100% on Jamie. I mean, that's just, I'm not taking the man's perspective. I just feel like, hey, the sister came to him for a solution. He did the best that he could. He wasn't trying to, prevent her from having kids again. It went badly. He's a kid. He's not a doctor. And for the whole family to hold that against him, I think forever, but not hold anything against Beth for getting pregnant or not telling her parents, which I think are the two bigger issues leading up to it, has caused, that's all the internal drama against Jamie, right?
Right.
And ever since, Jamie's been trying to be the good son, trying to do his best, trying to get his father's approval, always being a little bit of a wuss, right? Always being a little bit sneaky or snakish. But apart from that, he really hasn't been a bad guy until maybe this season, right?
Yeah.
And his crimes this season were, one, impeach his father. Justifiable or not justifiable?
Probably justifiable, right? Because I think it's also him. Kevin Costner was being incredibly obstinate about his ranch, but then he wasn't doing anything that would actually help his ranch get out of trouble.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, which is we're supposed to admire Dutton because of his oak-like resolve, right? And he's this pillar of what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And as much as we do admire that, I think we've seen for several seasons now that the ranch itself is not a viable business model.
Yeah.
And rather than just sell, let's just say 100 acres, right? Which, to be honest, I don't think they ever would have noticed. They could have sold 100 acres for enough money to kind of like pay their taxes, put them in a good place, kind of like resolve their issues, right?
Yeah.
And I understand there's a emotional issue about selling your land. Neither of us can deny that. But again, given all the other complications about it, that seems like a better solution than all of the alternatives. And I think as a governor, he had some very good points, but I think that, again, he was also in denial about the long-term realities, especially because he was only going to do this for 4 years. And then after he left, then what was going to happen? Everything would just be on hold for 4 years, and 4 years later, then it would all start all over again, right?
Also, like Beth last season gave a great solution, which was to start the butchery of the beef.
Yeah, their own brand, like the
steak,
Sixes.
and he refused to do that. And I thought that was such a simple solution.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great solution, but he refused to do it, and I didn't understand why.
So this is kind of a mess of their own doing. It was a long-standing mess.
Yeah.
So he had to become governor to try to cancel the airport, to fix all the stuff that was supposed to be. He wanted to undo everything. And that's where the tension began with Jamie. And that's why Jamie then sought to impeach him because of, the losses of revenue and the potential lawsuits that the state was going to have. So I guess I understand that. I think there's obviously an intermediary step, especially when you're dealing with your father and a governor before impeaching him. There's definitely a better way to do it. Anyway, that's probably getting too procedural into to the law and not really relevant to the storyline. But there is definitely a better way to do it. But Jamie's been a bad decision maker. So, it's not like he doesn't have any culpability. Obviously, starting the relationship with the lady from Emerging Markets, right? The company that
bad idea.
This is why any sympathy that you have for Jamie, I think, is dissipated by him making such reckless, irresponsible choices, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, she's very beguiling, and it's hard to say if we were not in the same position that we would not have done, something similar, but definitely he should have recused himself. He just can't be so easily manipulated by people, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, they come up with a plan, taking out his father. And that's a big step. I think it would have been a little bit more believable if Jamie wouldn't have been involved in that.
Yeah, exactly.
If Jamie would have said something like, man, I just want to see that old bastard dead, kind of like a heat in the moment, excited utterance, right? And the lady's like, well, I'm going to run with that.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on. Like, I was venting like to you privately. I didn't mean to kill the guy. Like, it was an expression, right? Like,
Yeah,
that would have
exactly.
been a little bit better. And if she would have just run with it and, gotten it done. I read somewhere the John Dutton character died, but I didn't read the article. So I knew it was coming up. And I kind of thought that he was just going to have died of a heart attack or
A reoccurrence of the cancer.
yeah, or he'd be gored by a bull or something like on the ride or something, That was going to be the way that he was going to go. I think it went a little bit far with the midnight
Military style assassination, Day of the Jackal style assassination, really.
yeah. And I thought one of the more interesting things was when they're like, well, the power was out from 3:50 to 5, right? Well,
Yeah.
what time did he die? 3:53. Like, come on. Like, is that not, I don't know why they need the coroner to find all this stuff that I don't think was believable at all. When for me, the most obvious thing was, so the power went out the night that he committed suicide, just coincidentally?
Yes.
Come on. No way. I thought the assassination just was not consistent with it. There would have been a better way for Costner, I think, to die with a little bit more dignity and put Jamie then in a position where maybe he was elevated to be the new governor, but then there was a challenge because of, his relationship or something. I thought there was just a more natural way without turning this into like a hitman show.
Yeah, and that's effectively what's happened this season, or at least this back half of this season, is you're watching it now to see the conclusion of the inevitable, but it's not the show that I fell in love with all the way back in season 1 and 2.
I agree. I feel like they do a lot of, I don't know if you've caught this, there's a lot of montages this year.
Yeah.
I don't remember so many montages, but it feels like they're trying to get the cowboy parts in, like playing some music and then showing a bunch of like horses kick up dust and everyone running around and the cattle going through the things and so forth. But it's really less about cowboying and the land than it was in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe that's because it's run its course, but I was hoping it would play out, Dutton died of a heart attack or some type of natural causes. Jamie then, took his role and was trying to undo everything. And Beth then, went to kill Jamie. And Beth killed Jamie, but Beth was caught. And, she couldn't get out of this one. And Beth was going to jail. And that there was kind of like an emotional goodbye between like Rip and Beth.
Yeah.
And you could kind of say like, look, everyone kind of got what they deserved. Dutton died. It wasn't like a murder homicide. Jamie was killed by his sister, which we all saw it was leading up to this, right? And Beth, the awful person, finally got, kind of what she deserved is that she should be in an institution and should deal with the inmates there. And there should probably be a spinoff called Orange is the New Black where Beth runs that women's prison,
Right. What do you think of what's going on with Casey's family?
I mean, he's dissociating himself, I think, with the ranch, that after so many years of having this weird relationship with where he belongs, he seems to be, I think, more comfortable with the idea that his wife and his son are his priorities and they need their own space and they just need to do their own thing,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's a very compelling storyline, but I think it's finally clearing up that for years he's been, what is his role? Where does he belong? What does he do? This is, I think, providing a little bit of clarity to this.
Yeah.
But the assassin part, I think, is, I have to say,
Uh,
it's not unenjoyable, but I just don't think it's Yellowstone. I think
no,
it's
exactly. That's
a
the
different
thing.
show.
That
Yeah.
that's almost a lioness show. This isn't
Yeah. Yeah.
or
It,
it may have even been okay in Tulsa King, but in Yellowstone,
yeah. My big thing now is I just dislike Beth so much. I really want Beth. She's just nasty. Like even to Summer, right? And Summer was unlikable, unhinged, environmental
Yeah.
hippie, right? And you know me well enough, Pete. I mean, certainly I think a lot of her views were silly. And, certainly I wasn't, sympathetic to, her way of life. But she evolved a little bit as a character. And even though she's still kind of a vegan and even though an animal rights person, she's kind of like, okay, this ranch is not actually evil. I understand why you vaccinate calves, right? I understand some of the things you do, right? She kind of saw the reason behind it. But like Beth was just like beyond awful to her. Like
Yeah.
at every meal that, Dutton wanted to have. I mean, Beth was always, she was just a rude person. And then you go to the point, which is Dutton. Was he a bad father? Like all his kids are, I mean, what's the ultimate verdict on him when he gets to heaven or to the gates, right?
right.
Like his wife died too young, horrible tragedy. His daughter Beth spends every episode crying about, something, but she's just awful to everybody. Dutton himself has killed countless people or seen countless people get killed and covered it up or thrown them in the
Yeah.
valley or something, right?
Yeah.
He's got a terrible relationship with Jamie, who he adopted and now can't stand. His relationship with Casey is good, but pretty loose. Dutton honestly hasn't really done a great job. The ranch is in a bad position. It's kind of a bad report card for him overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Horrible.
But have you noticed that they've involved now the Sixes?
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. The Texas Ranch, right?
So the 4 Sixes. Now, what's happening in so there's going to be landmen, right? Which is totally different.
Totally different. Apparently, it's Yellowstone for the oil industry in Texas.
Okay. And there is going to be a 4 Sixes series?
I guess, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Second season of 1923 is coming out.
Have you watched the first season?
I gave up after a few episodes. It's just not my bag. To be honest, Yellowstone scratched that Western itch.
Yeah.
And I don't need another. They had so many spin-offs. This is going to be, if the 4 Sixes comes out, that'll be the third spin-off of the Yellowstone show. And you know what I mean? Like, I just don't need it.
I feel the same way. I've enjoyed Yellowstone for what it is. I'm not dying for another season. I just want to see this wrapped up. And to be honest, I guess I want to see like a little bit of just closure for all of my characters,
Yeah.
Jamie, I don't want to see him be governor. I mean, I've got some sympathy for Jamie, but to be honest, not much anymore.
He's lost all sympathy after this collusion with the lawyer from the New York company.
The alleged Sarah Atwood.
Yeah.
Beth, I just think that she's been repugnant for seasons and seasons. Even I don't think she's terribly nice to Rip, I have to say. I mean, Rip genuinely seems to be a good guy, although his past is not super great. But you see how she just also kind of like manipulates him,
Yeah.
Like he's like, hey, like, let's just sit here and watch the sunset. And she's like, no, focus on me. Sunsets are overrated. Okay. She like just shows up to the ranch and like, hey, I'm stealing him for the weekend. Like you can view these things in two ways. Like it's very romantic and, the relationship has to come first. But I feel like when it's Beth, it's always just so her first,
Yeah,
like,
I know what you mean.
I want a weekend with you. Like, yes, I'm undermining your authority. And yes, I'm making you look bad. And yes, it's making you stand out, but it's what I want. So Don't worry, I'll fix it. I'll bribe everybody by saying next weekend I'll fly down your girlfriends, you know?
Yeah.
You know, when you see her driving back to wherever she's driving from, you know, she's practicing Italian. Oh, she's perfect at Italian, right? Like it's all Beth, the perfect.
Well, maybe they were setting it up so that she dies at the end.
Rip is a sympathetic guy because he's simple and he's straight to the point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, is Yellowstone still a must subscribe for you?
It is not. It's a mooch.
It is a mooch.
It's gone to a mooch. It's not to say there aren't some fun things about it that I enjoy watching, and there are some elements that are enjoyable, but it's not the show that it was in season 1 and 2.
That's true. I will say though, I think knowing the ending is going to be important.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You know, we see now like Chairman Rainwater has kind of like reached out to Beth, and you know, he reached out to John previously. I think that would have been a nice storyline for the last season to see those two groups cooperating a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
You know, they both want, you know, the land to remain intact and they could see past their differences. So I feel like the Native Americans got a little bit of a short shrift in here. And also that other lady who's challenging Rainwater, she seems awful also.
Oh,
right?
my God, horrendous.
Like so nasty. Okay, so I agree with you. I don't think that Yellowstone this season is a must subscribe, but I think the ending is a must know.
Yeah. I think we all need and deserve closure after 5 seasons.
Yeah.
I hope it's a satisfying one, and knowing Taylor Sheridan, it probably will be.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll leave it open-ended.
We have one more thing to discuss, do we not?
Yeah, it's not much to say because it's still way too early, but what are you thinking of Dune Prophecy?
Oh, I have to say, I really, really liked it.
What about it do you like?
I liked all the characters. There was no one that I really disliked. I thought that the pacing was fantastic. And I thought that the Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit, yeah. Well, they're not called that yet.
No, they're not. They're just kind of the sisterhood, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I like the idea of, you know, the Harkonnen sisters. We saw a little bit of their background.
That's right.
We saw a little bit of, you know, what made them different and their commitment to the cause. And I thought, to be honest, the scenes were really fantastic. Like the visuals were really interesting. Like if you're a sci-fi fan, it does that interesting thing that you see often in Star Wars where there's some stuff that seems like super high tech. Although in Dune, obviously, technology takes a little bit of a backseat because of the machine wars. But then you see some things that are really basic, like the way that they were like harvesting like the whales, or whatever those whale creatures are. I get really into things like that. Like I was really compelled by like Dune Prophecy. I loved both the younger person who played Valia.
Yeah.
I loved Emily Watson, who plays the current Valia.
Yeah.
Olivia Williams plays Tula Harkonnen. I mean, I was just really, really fascinated by the entire thing. The storyline is a little bit meh.
It's a bit murky at the moment still. Even after 3 episodes, I'm still not 100% sure where they're going.
Yeah. I love Mark Strong. I'm not in love with the dude Travis Fimmel. I find him to be a little bit of an overactor. His eyes are always like real big and wide, and he always kind of like talks kind of slow and weird. Like I don't really love him as a character, but it's nice that I recognized him. But I thought like all the female characters, very, very strong, like fantastic. While the plot makes sense, I don't think the storyline is really fully formed yet, right? Every episode is moving at a good pace, but I think the overall purpose of this thing is still a little bit murky, like you said.
Right.
I have to say, though, if you loved Dune 1, if you loved Dune 2, I don't think this is essential to understanding that.
No, not at all.
But I think it adds, you know, more context.
I think this does what a good sci-fi spin-off should do, or what a good spin-off should do, period,
Yeah.
right? Is it should give you a better rounded knowledge of the world that you've seen in the past or that you like,
Yeah.
but it's not essential viewing in the sense that it's not linked so closely that if you don't see this, you won't understand the sequels in the next movie.
Yeah. So can I compare this to House of the Dragon? Both of those are technically prequels,
Yeah,
but I think they were intelligent enough to start. If you take Star Wars, Rogue One led directly into A New Hope, right?
that's right.
That's a true like prequel. Whereas I think that these House of the Dragon and now, Dune Prophecy, they were earlier stories within the same intellectual property. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? They took place
absolutely.
hundreds, if not thousands of years earlier. So you recognize what you're seeing. You have entirely different characters, of course. You have some family names that you recognize. There's some concepts that are consistent between them, but it's not as though you're like, oh, well, this is exactly how this person came to be, or this is how this person was born, or this was their mother. There's still several generations that are going to come into between. Even, when you talk about like the Atreides character, the Harkonnen characters, they have nothing to do with the Harkonnens and the Atreides that you see in Dune 1 and Dune 2, right? Like Paul Atreides is nowhere to be seen in
No
this.
one knew. This is 10,000 years in advance. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. House of the Dragon, I think, is a little bit closer, even though it's still a few generations between Game of Thrones, because obviously they're battling, and that we know who's going to win, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, Dune Prophecy, it's been very, very enjoyable for me. Maybe it's easier to be enjoyable because the stakes for you and I are so low, right? Like we don't have to have this
Yeah.
ultimate battle that we're leading to. You're like, it's inevitable. This is going to happen. Like we know that something big is going to take place. How's it?
And we also know that this is 10,000 years in advance. So when it's 10,000 years in advance, it doesn't need to end the way we know. Like season
That's
one
right.
does not need to end with the Bene Gesserit being formed.
That's
Not
right.
even season 2 or 3 needs
No,
to
no,
end with the
no.
Bene Gesserit formed.
Yeah.
This could just be this is the laying the foundations for the Bene Gesserit
Yes.
form. And
Yes.
maybe the goal is that by the end of, I don't know if this is like a 3-season arc or a 5-season arc or a 1-season arc, whatever it is, maybe that's when they're like, okay, we need to create our own mythology.
Yeah.
And that's got to do with the sandworms on Arrakis and so forth. And then they kind of bring that forward. Maybe that's all that happens. But even then,
Yeah.
that's a great story to know.
Yeah.
Which, again, as you rightly said, adds a lot of flavor to watching chapter 1 and chapter 2, but has no material impact.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, again, from like a religious perspective, that's really interesting that you mentioned that, a group said, look, we need to write our own history. We need to write our own mythology, not for today, but we need to basically write our history so that the future can understand or has something to kind of like kind of
Coalesce
write the Bible.
towards. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Like kind of write their own Bible, write their own, vision or mission or what they've been through to kind of, lay out their past and what the future needs to be, right?
Yeah.
That's how you kind of like indoctrinate people. And the Bene Gesserit, they really are in a way a religious, right?
Oh, yeah,
Or,
absolutely.
I mean,
It's like a
bordering
religious
on a
cult
cult.
almost. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, in some ways, people will look back in 10,000 years and be, oh, we had such a rich history, and this is what we came from, and this is what we believed in, and this is who our leader was, and maybe the beginnings are a little bit more humble. In that way, they've already started those a little bit. Who was the original Reverend Mother? Raquella, right?
Right.
I mean, Raquella already has a very mythological type following, right? But
Yeah.
it was just her at the time. And then she had Dorothea, and Dorothea had like a different vision, but then Valia kind of like overtook Dorothea.
Well, yeah, Valia does the
The
voice thing,
voice.
right? And makes her
Yeah.
kill herself, basically.
Yeah. It seems like in this season, the big, I don't know, the conflict is between Valia and Desmond, right? And that needs to be
Yeah,
resolved one way or another.
that needs to be clarified. Because
Yeah.
it looks like she's got almost like an internal revolt to deal with the sisterhood,
Yeah.
and also what's going on with Desmond.
And the sisterhood has obviously lost a lot of its, I think, clout
Yeah,
with I don't know what Mark Strong's character is, the Emperor, right?
yeah,
Shavako, Carino. So I mean, the sisterhood's obviously lost a lot of their clout. I mean, the boy died of burning, the sister died now. Desmond seems to have, quite a lot of power. So yeah, I mean, there needs to be something that's going to change, right? And then you've got, the Atreides character, right? They're obviously trying to do like some type of sabotage. So something else is kind of like in the mix as well. I don't know is it a must subscribe for you?
So I was just about to ask you, 3 episodes in, where are you on this show?
I mean, I would pay to continue watching.
Yeah, I think that's the way to look at it, is if I were not a Max subscriber,
right,
and I saw the first episode,
yeah,
I think you could convince me to plop down the $15 a month or whatever it costs to continue subscribing until the series is over. I don't think that it's a must subscribe on its own merits, but it's intriguing enough that I want to continue watching.
Yes.
But because I would pay money for it by default, by that, by inherent default, it becomes a must subscribe.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to say it. Is that probably at home, I would not, pay for Max just to watch this, but I'm thinking of it this way, which is probably the same test. If I'm on an airplane, I'm flying to the US.
Yeah.
And I watch the first 3 episodes, right? I've got 7 hours left on the flight. And they say, okay, now if you want to watch the next 4 episodes, swipe your credit card. I would do it. Rather than read a book, rather than, try to find something else, I'd be like, no. Like, I got to finish this. Yeah, I'll pay the $15 to watch the next 4 episodes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that if they were doing this on an episode by episode, like you can, buy 1 episode at a time, I would continue. There's no reason for me to not continue buying the episodes. I agree. At this moment.
Yeah. And I think that's a good test, because I would not be doing that with Yellowstone.
If this were the first time I was watching Yellowstone, I wouldn't either.
I would do it this way. If I watched season 5, episode 1, okay, on a Saturday night, and episode 1 was free, and they said, hey, it's $2 to watch episode 2, I'd be like, let's see what else is there. Right?
Yeah.
If the season is totally over and I finally want to watch like what happened, maybe I would read about it. And then depending upon what happened, maybe I would try to watch like the last episode.
Or like in this case, borrow someone's password.
Yeah.
Because you and I are going to finish it, not necessarily because we think it's fantastic, but I think it's also because we've got sunk cost into this, right? Like we've spent 5 seasons watching this.
I'm doing it out of duty. I'm doing it out of duty.
Not necessarily because, it's amazing, I have to watch it, but also because like, hey, we've spent 5 years watching this show. Let's kind of close the chapter on it.
Yeah. But also, I'm not learning anything from Yellowstone. Like maybe season 1, I can say I learned a little bit about Montana and life and ranching. I love those shows that like are provocative and they make me think. And I think that, Dune Prophecy has caused me to think a little bit, it's expanded me a little bit. And I think that's worth something. So I think Dune is a must subscribe.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yellowstone right now, season 5, I'm rating as a mooch. Dune Prophecy by definition and by default is a must subscribe.
We are agreed on both of those. Pete, read off our YouTube creds and let us wrap it up for the weekend.
Absolutely. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast. DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. But as always, the best thing you can do, like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell.
Boom. Pete, thank you for joining us on a special double episode of Films and Stuff. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. We will have more content and hot takes for you next week, next episode, Films and Stuff Podcast. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.